That was a requested song to start with. So, we're going to finish up Reformation and Renaissance today, talking about Teresa of Avila. Okay, so Teresa of Avila is a Spanish nun. I'll kind of go back to where we were. Remember, we left off with the Jesuits yesterday. So, we're just talking about, different sects or groups that break apart from other religious groups, right? So, the Jesuits are a splinter group from the Catholics, right? Saint Teresa of Avila, Spanish nun. She's not the Saint Teresa of Calcutta. Calcutta is the one. Saint Teresa of Calcutta. She works in India. Um, Comes a little bit later. Established a very strict order of nuns, but preaching fasting, prayer, and meditation. Church will eventually canonize her, and she continues to grow in the Catholic faith. So there are two Saint Teresas. Again, Saint Teresa of Avila, and then there's also Saint Teresa of Calcutta, right? And that's really all we're going to talk about with Saint Teresa. Just kind of get into her quickly as a prominent figure during the Renaissance. Okay, so widespread persecution. Who are the two most intolerant groups? That would be the Catholics and the Protestants. Right? They did not tolerate Jewish people. They did not tolerate Muslims, and they continue to persecute and torture people that were not Protestant or Catholic. 1450 to 1750, witch hunts are conducted around the world. Um, Women are targeted more than men. Women were said to be more devilish than men were. Right? We've kind of not heard, but when we've learned in history, right, we've kind of seen this before that women are looked at as more evil than men are. Anyone who seemed anti-Christian is also considered a witch. Okay, so remember again, we've talked about how they blame Jewish people for their many Catholics and Protestants had blamed Jewish people, right? And again, here Jewish people were persecuted as well and forced to convert to Christianity. Okay, any remaining Jewish people, they pushed them to the ghettos, right? The poor area, the slums. They forced the Jewish people to live there. They forced them to take the bad jobs, and they tried to persecute and punish the Jewish people for not being Catholic. Okay, so again, not really a proud moment in Catholic history, right? We just talked about the selling of indulgences. Okay, so this was one of the ways that the Catholics and Protestants tried to spread their religion and kind of dominate the world with their religion, right? Or Europe for that matter. But that's where we're going to kind of lead off with the Reformation. The church was heavily involved. They had secular involvement there. We're reducing their secular involvement, but there are still issues as far as intolerance is concerned. Other issues that will be brought up will be how can science change? Another thing we talked about with science is science usually brings issues or conflicts with the Catholic religion, right, or the Christian religion, the Protestant, regardless, all of them. So science is going to kind of challenge some of these ideas. For example, the Big Bang Theory, gravity, all these ideas that kind of start from this time period, right? They're challenging the Christian thought. So a couple of people that we'll talk about quickly is Nicholas Copernicus. Copernicus, you're going to talk about him next year too. Copernicus is very important. Publishes on the revolution of heavenly spheres, but more importantly, proposes the idea of the heliocentric model. Okay. Um, then we have Tycho Brahe. He is a Danish scientist that supports Copernicus and essentially uses like math to try and prove that Copernicus is correct, right? Then you have Johannes Kepler. Kepler is an astronomer who will then use Brahe's data to calculate the orbit of other planets. Okay, so one, we don't believe that the sun. That we believe the sun is now the center of the Earth. Tycho Brahe kind of proves that it is the center of the Earth, and then using that data to prove that the sun is the center of the Earth, Kepler actually performs an idea, and he also believes in heliocentric model, and he also finds out the orbits of other planets as well and tries to calculate them. Then there's someone that many of you probably know, Galileo Galilei, right? He assembles the telescope. Telescope is used to observe the moon, and it revolves around the Earth. Many people hated and rejected these men and their ideas. That's probably the most important part of this. That's why I have it in red, right? Um, these ideas were all kind of published in or created in behind closed doors, right? It was not a it's not really a common thing to think like this, right? And it was against what everyone believed, right? It was against their religion. We all know how important religion is to the the people living during this time period. So when you are rejecting these common thoughts, you're rejecting the fact that Earth the center of the universe. Instead, they're saying the sun is, right. No one else really believes them, and they think these men are crazy, right? Some other works that they have done, some other ideas that they had, could have been stolen from someone else, right? So instead of spreading their knowledge while they're alive, they kind of kept it behind closed doors to kind of keep themselves alive, right? So Copernicus, Brahe, Kepler, Galileo, all four are famous scientists, and they're all famous for really their relationship and figuring out the heliocentric model and the orbits of the planets, around the world. I mean, around the universe, rather. Okay, so what is a scientific method? Maybe you guys remember that. A little science fair people out there, people that love the science fair, right? You had to prove the scientific method. So, scientific method, right? Introduces a new introduction to the new scientific method, right? Step by step discovery. So we have state the problem, gather information, hypothesis, best possible a possible explanation as to what it is. Then you experiment it. You collect and analyze data. You draw conclusions, share data, and then answer the problem. Okay, this should be something that's familiar to you guys that you've learned about in science, and not just this year, but throughout your whole life that you've kind of learned that this is kind of the step by step process of the scientific method, right? How we kind of prove experiments correct or not, right? How you prove your hypothesis. So, the one important thing though is a scientific method will not only be used for sciences, but rather will start being used for like philosophy and questioning, life's ideas, and life's biggest questions. So that will be important to know too, that they start using the scientific method to try and oh jeez, almost dropped my laptop. Um, to try and answer life's biggest questions, especially the philosophical questions like why are we here? Is there an afterlife? Is there a meaning to life? And all of these various other questions. So you can definitely use a scientific method to kind of answer any sort of question that you have in life. And then finally, we have a few breakthroughs in medicine and chemistry, and we're really just gonna, as long as you know who these gentlemen are, what they're famous for, like even Copernicus, Kepler, Brahe, and Galileo, right? Same thing here with Isaac Newton and Robert Boyle. Isaac Newton is the theory of gravity, right? Also, an object in motion stays in motion, and he will help develop calculus. Very famous, but again, we're not going to get too in depth into Sir Isaac Newton, just knowing that he developed the theory of gravity. As well as there is the emergence of Robert Boyle. Robert Boyle is a famous chemist, and he will make a lot of his discoveries using what we call alchemy. Right, and that's trying to like fuse elements to create precious metals. Um, the other thing too is the Renaissance brings new light to human anatomy, right? The humanism part of the Renaissance is, the exploration of the human body. Okay, just think about Leonardo da Vinci, right, and the way he was kind of working with cadavers. So at this point, we bring, like I said, we have a new light on human anatomy, development of prevention for diseases, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of new scientific methods, new scientific advancements, okay, And this on top of the Renaissance, on top of the Reformation, brings a lot of people. Their faith is shaken in the Catholic Church. Okay, so you can see that not everyone is blindly following the Catholic Church anymore, or any church that, for that matter. Science kind of brings that question about, as well as the Reformation and the exposure of the abuse of the Catholic Church, kind of put on their people. So that's really going to be it, folks, because that's where we left off with the Jesuits. So if you we'll have our review on Tuesday. We'll do a Flipgrid where you can ask me any questions, and also hold a Google Meet as well. So we're getting off easy today. Only like a little bit over 11 minutes today, as opposed to getting the whole 15. But take that time to study, and please review the old Ed puzzles and review the questions too, because some of you guys get them wrong, and I actually give you the right answer to them. So if you got it wrong, look at the right answer and look where you went wrong. All right, kids, stay safe, social distance.